Rob Dauster here. I got Jeff Goodman with me.
Hell no.
John Fink.
Are we still live?
Field of 68 till I die.
I'm sorry, man. I blacked out.
Randolph Childress.
DJ Khaled, you know the big DJ Khaled guy?
Hands brought up and in.
Goodman needs to be fired all the time.
Josh Pastner. You're going to beat people straight up.
You know the deal.
Drink responsibly tonight. I'll be drinking with you.
Jarrell McNeil.
From the bluest of the blue bloods to the smallest of the mid-majors.
This is Field of 68 after dark.
Hello and welcome to the Saturday evening edition of the Field of 68 After Dark. My name is Rob Dauster. I got Randolph Childress with me. I've got Jeff Goodman with me. We're live over on Sirius XM Channel 84. We're going to be here for about the next hour or so, give or take a few minutes. If you want to jump in the afters with us after we are done on Sirius, we have a lot to get to today. Purdue and Indiana squared off, and Jeff, it doesn't look like that's too much of a rivalry anymore. We had Tyler Collette go full Randolph Childress and put together one of the most impressive halves of college basketball that I've seen this season. Baylor and Kansas squared off. Michigan State and Illinois squared off. But gentlemen, we have to start down in Lexington, where for the first time since 1967 and for the first time in the history of Rupp Arena, the Kentucky Wildcats have lost 3 consecutive games in that building. Gonzaga 89, Kentucky 85. Graham Ike had 23 points to lead the Bulldogs, who look like they are finally in a position to maybe make a run at getting a chance to an at-large bid. Jeff, what's your biggest takeaway from Gonzaga's win over Kentucky in Rupp Arena?
I think it was just how bad their bigs are right now. You know, I know everybody said, well, their guards didn't look great. Their bigs just give them nothing defensively. I mean, again, I don't know if it's quite their fault because Bradshaw missed so much time in the preseason and earlier in the year, and Big Z obviously just was eligible a couple weeks ago. So it's hard to blame both those guys, but they look completely lost. Onyensu had like one great game, and then he hasn't really given him much. Obviously, Trey Mitchell was out, but he's not very good defensively. He would have given him something offensively, certainly more than what they got. But I just expected them to win this one convincingly against the Gonzaga team that really isn't very good. I mean, they're probably an NIT team if they don't beat Kentucky. And maybe even with the win against Kentucky, they might still have to beat St. Mary's in the road, San Francisco on the road, and then get to the WCC finals and lose to St. Mary's just to have a shot to get in. So, you know, to lose these games the way they've lost them is kind of an embarrassment. But I'm still not ready to put Cal in the hot seat because, as I said, it all depends on what they do in the NCAA tournament, Rob. And, yes, they're going to get in the NCAA tournament to all those, you know, Big Blue Nation fans that are up in arms that are going out of their minds tonight. They're going to be in, but they could be like a 10 seed at this point. Who knows?
RC?
Jeff, let's be honest, man. We've seen nothing defensively from Kentucky to make a Final Four run. I think we all agree that we thought that we were mesmerized by the talent. We've seen it at its peak. Could they go out and beat anybody on any given day? They could. But on the defensive end of the floor, it ain't there. And I think it's not about the hot seat for me with Kyle. And I said this another night with us, guys. The question that I would have is, will Kyle just say, man, I had enough of this? And just go into his
walking away from $33 million. RC, he's not walking away from $33 million.
But part of that, Jeff, is he can go to an administrative role and collect his $33 million.
He's not doing that. Come on.
I'm not saying he will. He should or he will. But I say at some point, I bet you he'd have a conversation at some point if they have another first or second round exit.
Sure.
Dealing with that. And let's just be honest, man, this thing has changed quite a bit. I mean, I'm only saying it because, again, we talk about so many of the great coaches that have left, that have retired. And then we talk about some of the guys who are still here that hate the way the game of college basketball is right now, that don't really like it. Here's a guy like Kyle isn't new to this. He's been around. He's an OG in this. He's been around for a minute. So I'm only saying from playing at Kentucky, he's had a run. It's been 15 years. And you have a ready-made situation where you can transition to. Do you want to do that, or do you want to stay there and deal with this? Because this team defensively ain't taking you to Phoenix. It's just not.
But his ego, number one, his ego's too much. His ego's too much to walk away. To me, it would be for something else. Or, yes, if Mitch Barnhart goes to him and somebody writes a check for $33 million, or enough people do, then I could see if they lose in the first round. The one thing he's doing here, he's actually lessening the expectations going to the NCAA tournament. Now, I know it doesn't matter. I get it. But if you lose in the first round and you're a 2 seed, everybody goes bananas, even beyond what it will be. Because if you're a 10 or 11.
The only problem, and look, you're right. You're not wrong about that. But the problem is with where he already set the expectations too high with how much fun this team was earlier in the season and the talent that they have. And my biggest issue here, there's a couple things that I have a problem with, and that I think really need some scrutiny if you are a decision maker at Kentucky. He's got that coaching staff that he has, right? You got to figure there's someone on there that's supposed to be trying to figure this stuff out defensively. Well, they've had the same problems for the last 3 weeks that we have been talking about on this show, right? It's very evident what the issue is.
That's not easy to fix with these young guys that don't want to guard. They don't want to guard.
They don't play him, man. Like that's the coaching. Then don't bring him in. Then bring in somebody else. Then go get a bunch of
who are you bringing in? You sat Wagner and Dillingham tonight. You sat him with a game on the line. Who are you putting in? Yeah. Reeves isn't guarding. Shepard doesn't really guard. Now, as you put out, he takes chances and he'll make some great plays, but he'll also make some bonehead plays. They don't have a plus defender anywhere on the court or on the bench. Maybe the kid Diarra is pretty good. He's about
all right. So here's my question then. Who built this roster?
No, it's him. He deserves it. I get it. I'm not defending Calipari. And to be honest, it should have been a lot worse because they shouldn't have had Antonio Reeves because he wanted to transfer and couldn't. And they shouldn't have had Trey Mitchell, but he wouldn't have been here if Huggins didn't get fired late. Think of how bad they'd be then.
And Jeff, what we're talking about and what I'm saying as well is let's talk about recruiting and everything with them, which, in my opinion, Duke seems to get that guy. Like next year, it's Cooper Flagg. He's supposed to be the crown jewel in that class. Duke has been getting that guy these last few years. When is the last time, and not saying the Kentucky freshmen are damn good. They're great. But when was the last time they went to the veteran guys. That didn't last long. Now they're going back to the young guys, the freshman guys again. But they're not getting that difference maker. They're not getting the AD, the John Wall. It just seems like right now they've lost that recruiting battle. Those kids are going to Duke year in and year out for the last couple of years. When's the last time they had that freshman, that difference maker guy? And so that's why I posed the question before about will Kyle just be like, man, because that's where they headed. If we fast forward the clock to a month and this team falls anything short of Phoenix, they're going to be ready to burn Lexington down. Another year, and because of this team was so good at one point in time, and everybody's raving about this Final Four talent.
Yeah. Yep. I get it.
Now, here's the issue.
Saying.
But here's the main crux of the issue, right? Like if you are, it doesn't matter what players you have on your roster, what the pieces are, whatever it's built, however the puzzle fits together, you have to find a way to make it work, right? You have to change something. You have to do something to get better defensively. And all we've seen the last 3 weeks is them get worse and worse and worse and worse and worse. And I know that Gonzaga doesn't necessarily have like the deepest playbook in the world, but you go back and watch that tape. Seriously, anyone watching this right now, if you're listening to it, go back and watch it. Watch the last 10 minutes and 30 seconds and see what Gonzaga does. It's the same thing every single possession. They put Ryan Nembhard in a middle ball screen with whoever the 5-man is. They try to get the 5-man rolling to the basket. If it's not there, what they do is they swing the ball back to the top to Anton Watson, and they just get a high-low action because their big is sealing whoever Kentucky's big is right at the rim for a duck-in, turnaround layup. Graham Ike got it a bunch of times. Brayden Huff got it a bunch of times. They did the same thing over and over again. Kentucky got 3 stops. 3. I went back and counted them. 3 stops in the last 10 minutes of that game when they knew it was coming. Like at some point, and it's not a surprise either. Like we saw the issues with ball screens against Tennessee. We saw it against South Carolina. We know what the problem is with this team. At some point, you have to address it. It doesn't matter
Do
if
you
you got the
remember what I
wrong pieces.
said?
Doesn't matter this. Doesn't
What-
matter what you gotta. You're never going to go anywhere with a team that has these same problems that everybody. They know the secret's out. Just put them in ball screens.
What did I
You
say?
can't do anything.
What did I say when they got DJ Wagner? What did I say? They did not need DJ Wagner. They didn't need him. They had enough dudes that can score. They needed another veteran in the portal instead of DJ Wagner, who duplicates, and he really can't shoot it. Like, yeah, he can go downhill. He can finish great. Well, they got dudes who can score. That's not the issue. They needed to be older. And when I was the one conversation I've had with John Calipari in the last 13 years, I asked him about that a couple of years ago about, like, are you going to keep going portal? And he wouldn't be definitive at that point because, again, it was before, like, Shibwe and all that. And I think with Shibwe, I think it was more of, like, defensively him being a liability. They didn't win there. They lose to St. Peter's. And then he decides to go back to this freshman model that just isn't going to work in 2023-24.
All right, I want to get to Gonzaga here in 1 second, but I do just want to hit you with this, RC, because you've played at this level and you've coached at this level and you have an understanding of dealing with egos. When you're winning games and everything is going good, it doesn't matter who's getting the minutes, right? It's a lot easier to kind of share those shots, to be able to share the ball. They've lost 3 in a row at Rupp. They've lost 4 out of 6 overall, and it kind of feels like the wheels are coming off of this thing a little bit. Dillingham played 18 minutes tonight, right? We've seen DJ Wagner. It's obviously injury related, but we've seen his minutes kind of cut recently. Aaron Bradshaw's not playing the same minutes he was when he first got back. Big Z is kind of in and out of the lineup. At what point during this, while they're losing, does it kind of become a thing where you have to worry about whether or not this group is together? Because we saw the togetherness when they were winning. How do you keep that together when things are going bad?
At some point, I mean, I would imagine he's holding these guys accountable. At the end of it's too much talent there. Ultimately, at the end of the day, he's going to have to send a message, whether it's if we're going to lose, we got to lose a certain way, or we're going to lose my way. You're not going to please everybody. You can't. There's too many guys. These guys want to play, whether it's Reed playing, Wagner, Dillingham, start. So you can't play and start them all. And then if you roll them out there, what are you going to say? Hey, we're going to see who's playing better and just play them that day. So whatever the standard, man, the standard is the standard at Kentucky. And so if they're not holding their end of the bargain, then you got to sit their ass down. It's simple as that. But to your point,
isn't that what Cal's best at, RC? Isn't that Cal's biggest strength, or hasn't that been his biggest strength over the years?
That's been his biggest strength, getting those guys to buy in, and that's his superpower. That's what he's been great at. And if that isn't working, then my point, then you got to start asking questions, because that's the one thing that he's always done is getting guys rallying troops. People have questioned his coaching and all of the other stuff. He got that part of it right.
Yep. All right,
so
Jeff,
Rob,
let's,
would you make a move on? Would you make a move on John Calipari after this year, or would you wait it out now and see kind of what happens here? And if they make, because they can get better.
You have no choice but to wait it out. But, I mean, you're not firing him in the middle of February. Like that's not happening.
I mean, at the end of the year. If they get
look,
bounced in the first weekend.
Yeah, I mean, you have to have I think you have to have a very real conversation with him and see if there's a way where you can kind of like split that number down the middle or something like that and say, hey, look, we'll give you X amount of dollars for however you want to live on the beach and be our ambassador. But I do think that at some point the groundswell of upset Kentucky fans might be a little bit too much for them to handle. Yeah, I do want to talk about Gonzaga because we got about 3 minutes here before we got to get to break. Mark Few has never missed the NCAA tournament, Jeff. 23 straight NCAA tournaments. Gonzaga's been to 24 straight NCAA tournaments. This was their first quad 1 win. Okay. They have 1 quad 1 win and they have 3 quad 2 wins. This is their winning at Kentucky is their only win against a top 60 opponent. They have only 2 wins against top 85 opponents. There's nothing on this resume. Are they in the tournament now? Do they still have work left to do? And do you think at the end of the day, this Gonzaga team is going to be playing in the big dance?
No, I think they have to run it here. And there are a bunch of easy games, right? I mean, Pacific, Portland, LMU's not tough. But the last 2 are kind of tough, right? Last 3, really. Santa Clara at home. Then you go to San Francisco on, I think it's February 29th. And then St. Mary's on March 2nd. I think you have to win all of them. And then that will afford you the opportunity to maybe lose in the West Coast Conference title game against St. Mary's and still get in. Now, you're going to probably need some help at that point, but you got to have one against St. Mary's, whether it's in the title game, which would get you an automatic bid, or in the regular season, plus the Kentucky win. I think that gets you enough. I mean, look at some of these other resumes that are on the bubble right now. So I think, and if they're close, trust me, you don't think the committee's going to put Mark Few in the first four if they can?
Yeah. RC?
I think they're right there with everybody else, but I agree with you, Jeff. They got to get those games. They got to get St. Mary's, and they got to get San Fran in those last 2 games on the road. They got to figure it out. And then, obviously, they got to make a run in their tournament, their conference tournament. But resume